And welcome back to People, Passion, Power. Our special guest today is a dear friend of mine. For almost a decade, I think I've known Pat Kilner. It's been a long time. And you know how you get that vibe from somebody? You're like, that's a dude I just want to know and I want to be friends with. That's how I felt about this guy from the very first time I met you. I was like, he's somebody that somehow, some way I need to incorporate into my world. So I'm super excited to have you as a guest, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Absolutely.
So we're going to jump in.
What business development activity could I do for the next 3 years such that I would be even more excited to do it at the end of that 3-year period than I am today?
That's it. Like, we could end the interview right there. Like, we're not going to, but that right there is worth this. Like, that entire 30 seconds you just laid out for us is crucial.
Well, how often do you do a lead generation activity that you are just exhausted by the thought of? It's constant. And I hear it from agents all the time, like, yeah, I'm going to suck it up and do my lead gen. Well, what if what you were putting your heart and soul into was actually something that you could see yourself flourishing in, becoming more excellent at, really getting excited about, and that actually made you better? So what was cool about this for me is I was really excited about getting an MBA every year. Right? Like, what would that look like if you, what is an MBA? It's a cohort of people who you get to hang out with. By the way, you get to also talk about these very specific subjects led by a master. But what if you could have the master and the cohort all in one? And that's how I looked at this. I don't have time to do an MBA outside of my business. And by the way, I need to have that cohort actually pay me. So that's what I did. And that was exciting to me.
This is fun, and Tim, who's our production coordinator, knows where we're about to go with this. We have these interviews, and I'm asking folks questions, and inevitably there comes a spot where the passion evolves in the conversation.
You can tell.
And I'm telling you, it comes through every time, doesn't it, Tim?
Absolutely.
I wish I had a camera so I could show you Tim. He's shaking his head, yes. But so it comes through. That passion about people, that curiosity about people, and by the way, it's people, and it's passion, and it's power. Ironically, that's the show we're about. Has led you to a spot where 33 became 100, became what at the peak of your career, and I'm not saying you're on the decline, it's transitioning, but how many transactions, you now own a brokerage, you're now writing a book, and it all stemmed from your genuine passion and genuine curiosity.
Yeah, we went from 33 to 50 to 60 to 88 to 105, and we've been breaking 100 very consistently. This year, frankly, we just have the right people.
Yeah.
So we got up to that 100, 110 sort of spot, and it's cruised. It cruised for a long, long time there, for probably like the last 5 years, which is great, and it's something that provides really well. I extracted myself from the client-facing side, and now just coach the people on my team. Mm-hmm. That's my passion. Is really what I found is that what I love to do is enable people who are all in to because I remember having to make the decision to go all in this business, and the daunting reality that was, and scrapping for every bit of knowledge that I could find out there from the people who would deign to grant me their time. And a lot of these conversations I was having with people were my unofficial mentorship, right? My job now is to provide that mentorship systematically in a focused way to a core group of people who take care of their families through their livelihood, through the mastery of this craft as well. And so that's what I've transitioned into. I've been so incredibly fortunate to find really amazing, talented people with him to do that as well.
And you're just running towards what excites you at this point in your career.
Yeah, I would say that.
You're not walking towards, you're running towards it. Yeah. Like I know.
Oh, and it wasn't that I wasn't super excited about the business. Here's the thing. I think I was excited about learning voraciously. And real estate provided an entree for entrepreneurship and thought that had attached to it tremendous responsibility, right? Like, if I don't think fast enough, and if I don't translate what I'm getting out of these conversations into action, my family doesn't have food on the table, right? And so there's some serious skin in the game there. And I think for me personally, I learn when there's a lot of skin in the game in a way that I don't when it's purely academic. So I love this. I love real estate for what it's offered me in terms of my own professional development, right? And I think that's what this business can be, more than, hey, I really love design, or I really like, right? I mean, maybe that's what animates you. For me, my passion came from that. And
you just keep evolving your personal growth. You're just leveling up on your personal growth.
The question is, okay, so am I reaching a plateau in terms of my growth?
Yeah.
And what's the gap between where I am and where I want to be?
Yeah.
How can I acquire that skill? It's usually a who.
It's a who. Your journey wasn't easy. You had something happen pretty dramatic in your life, right in the middle of your career, didn't you?
Yeah. And I mean, I think all of us. I'll preface this with, the reality is, no, if you live long enough, you're going to have some serious drama in your life, and you know, I've got 8 kids, so there's a lot of drama. It's just they happen to be human beings. It's amazing, right? So we're really fortunate to have a child with special needs, John Paul. He was born. He's our 5th. So what's that? I was 32 when he was born. So full time in the business, you know, from 26 really to 32. So about 6 years. And at that point, I did the best year I'd ever had. I had 6 months reserves in the bank. I was feeling great. I had an assistant who could read my mind. She was phenomenal. And I had just brought on my first buyer's agent because I literally could not keep up with the business. So that year, I think I had done, just with me, a buyer's agent and a personal assistant, with transaction coordination and executive assistant, 50 transactions.
Wow.
And that was, those margins are awesome. Those are phenomenal margins when you can do that. That might be the sweet spot before doing really hundreds and hundreds of transactions, because your marginal costs are so low, and you're in every transaction. So that was great, and I felt on top of the world. And you're getting all sorts of awards from your broker, and they're telling you you're the best thing since sliced bread. And what can we do for you? Do you want this office? Whatever it is, right? And I remember, and so he's born December 6th, and so coming off the great year, he's born. I've had 4 healthy kids prior to this, and there's something wrong with this baby, health-wise. And so long story short, he was diagnosed with basically if you understand what Parkinson's is, that's what it is for babies. Similar sort of effect on the body. So it's called spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA, and nobody survives it at that point. Nobody had ever survived SMA. So you can imagine, how hard it is as a parent. You're a parent, and it shifted everything for me. What I realized is that I had a business that necessitated me in it constantly in order to drive it forward. And I had convinced myself that I talked about that, and the paradigm I use is a business. I realized, actually, I have a very dependent business. I would actually call it more of a practice, right? Great doctors have great practices. Great attorneys have great practices. I had a practice. And a practice is not very highly leverageable. And without you, it dies almost immediately. So that's 6 months of reserves is going. It's going to be destroyed. I did have a couple of leverage points in that I had some good human beings on my team who I could give a lot to, and who I trusted implicitly. New buyer's agent who didn't know a lot but was very smart, and somebody who could basically read my mind but wasn't an agent. And so I did business from Children's Hospital for about 3 months. from December to the end of February. And we brought him home. It was great. And it was a critical care situation, so he had trach and vent and the whole 9 yards. And so you're running a NICU in your house during this time. And it was the most beautiful time. And nothing mattered more than being by my son's side. Mainly because at any given point, he could die. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so critical that every breath he took was aided. Right? And so when you have somebody in that critical state, they either have somebody to care for them who knows what they're doing, and home health care is great, but it's not critical care. Mm-hmm. So Elena and I we just took shifts for a year. And he was with us for that entire year and passed away February 20th of the following. The most amazing time of my career and my family life and my marriage. It's an amazing difficulty, for sure, to lose a child. And some of the greatest joy I've ever had in just, right, we all know this. The less you think about yourself, the happier you are. And a kid with special needs draws you out of yourself in a way that you can't think about anybody but them. Mm-hmm. And so having JP as part of our life was fundamental. But from a business perspective, which I want to bring around for those listening because it's a business podcast, from the business perspective, what it really forced me to do was look really, really hard at the idea that I was the only person that could serve my clients, which I think is actually, in part, almost a selfish thing to say. But we hear it all the time from a lot of business people. And I didn't have the choice to be able to say that at this point. And I would have said that all day long. Nobody can serve my people like me.
Sure.
Right? Because I didn't have that choice, I had to look at talent differently. And I had to believe that talent had the ability not only to do well enough on the things I gave them, but actually to exceed my expectations for them. And I think there's an important thing there. Once I started looking for talent as not just leverage to buy back time, but leverage to go and do bigger things, it changed everything. So that year that JP was born, we did as many transactions as the prior year, the year that we had him. And so my margins were slightly lower, but not horribly so, because I had to involve an agent a little bit more. But and so we kept the wheels on the bus. And when I was able to be more physically present to my business, I thought, now what I'm really excited about is what I was able to do with this agent. Mm-hmm. And it's not all pretty. I had both those people burnt out after a year. I had to, they were given responsibility before they were technically ready for it. Okay. And that's a recipe for burnout, and you got to be careful about that. And I'm always careful about that, with how I ramp people up now. And so both of them said, "Love you, but I've got to go." Within a month, they're like, as soon as they saw that I was good enough, which is an amazing thing. Like, they waited for me to come back into the business, not knowing when that would be, which is an amazing thing. So I owe a ton to them. But the power of that view of talent has led to me being able to write a book and found a brokerage and invest myself into many, many more people as a result of this journey. So
your family life is shaken to its core, I imagine. Your professional life, when you re-enter the atmosphere to the level that you did, several people depart from the organization.
Yeah.
And yet, here you are. Like, most people, I don't think, could take those punches and get up off the mat. How'd you do it?
I'm married to an amazing woman. She's just phenomenal, Elena. So I don't think you do this without a great partner.
Yeah.
In this. I'm really very fortunate to have. We're both from this area, so we have a lot of support. Both our parents are alive, and so we had a lot of family support, which was beautiful. At the end of the day, though, it's you getting up at night. It's you, making sure your spouse is sleeping.
Yeah.
That the other three who have school and all these other activities, are in good hands and well cared for and eating and sleeping enough. Our oldest was 6, right? So like it's not like they're very independent at that point at all. So that I would say that was key. I mean, that tribe that we had built into our lives was fundamental. I don't know how you do this well as a single parent.
Yeah.
Right. I certainly couldn't have.
Right.
Stress can be something that destroys you, or that you can allow to make you better and a clearer thinker. And I think one of the things I tell my agents all the time is that there's 2 types of people that you'll encounter in transactions. It's the type of people who at a certain point they're going to crack because of the stress, and they're going to do things that seem juvenile or mildly nutty, and don't be surprised, because that's what happens to most people. And then you're going to have the people who actually get better when the stress rises. Mm-hmm. And this is a much smaller portion of the population. It's definitely 80-20, it may be more skewed than that, maybe 90-10. And those are the people that I aspire to be. I want to be the type of person who, when stress hits, gets better. Those are people that I want to bring into my organization and help them, because there's a question of perseverance, there's a question of grit, but there's also a question of those things allowing you to make really, really wise decisions. Mm-hmm. Why do people hire us? They hire us because we're darn good when it's hard. They don't hire us because we're darn good when it's easy. I mean, that's nice, but you're hiring me for the opportunity cost of stuff going bad in many ways. Yeah. And I've always thought that that's the case for any good fiduciary, any good service professional. And service professionals who see their job as to just, hey, everything goes super smooth, right? Like, yeah, I want it to go really smooth, but actually you put on your cape when it gets hard and you go win. And I think this sort of, look, the idea of losing a child is arguably the most difficult thing I've ever grappled with. Losing him was hard as well, right? Actually, the idea was worse. Mm. The anticipation, right? We beat ourselves up in anticipation of what we believe is going to be excruciating. It's never as bad as you think, even when you're losing a loved one. And I will say that stretching, there's really nothing that can stretch you more than that, at least for me. And so knowing that I can overcome that has kind of allowed me to say, well, there's really, I mean, business is a game.
Nothing can stop you.
Business is a game at that point.
Yeah.
And nobody's dying here. And so with that in mind, okay, how do I show up? The other thing that I think is important to say is that like the immediacy and the fragility of life. Like, you only get one shot at this thing, so surround yourself with really amazing people and invest deeply into them. And that's how you cheat death, right? Like, in some ways, my son cheated death because he radically impacted me and thousands of other people who encountered him. My wife was writing a blog, mostly just to keep her family up to date, and it went viral. And we have people emailing us from Australia saying, hey, you've like changed our whole perspective on things. Amazing. So to see the impact of one life who literally can't breathe on his own, you go, okay, what the heck am I doing? How am I taking what I have and giving that to the world? And that's really, and again, business is a vehicle for that.
Yeah. Did you know, I'm sure you didn't, but I'll ask it anyway. Did you have any idea you could be stretched the way that you were stretched?
Zero. Yeah. No, I mean, my head would have exploded if you told me, hey, you're going to lose a kid next year.
Mine hurts, and heart hurts too right now just thinking about it. Like, oh, and then the way, first off, you're an inspiration to be able to talk about it. Thank you for letting me go there. And I think the viewers will get something out of that, because as you and I talk, like, we don't have enough agent-to-agent conversations about real stuff, and this is real. and just the way you have come out of that and the way you've approached it, I think we can learn so much about that. So thank you for
my pleasure.
letting me do that. And let's shift gears a little bit now.
Yeah.
For the agents that are watching, what would you say to them? Just a general, like, hey, it's Pat's knowledge bomb. Hit me with it. Although you've already given us 200 in this interview, what would you say?
I think business gets really interesting when it involves the well-being of other people. And I really believe that business is a tool for others. Now, I'll say this, when it comes to real estate, the question of, I get this, what does it take to succeed in real estate? What do I have to do? The game is different than when you and I got in the business, right? So it's 16 years now for me, and it has changed radically, right? MLSs, CRMs, the Zillows of the world, all of how business is sourced, the players in the marketplace. And the pace of disruption to the marketplace is only increasing. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I believe firmly that there's already a huge gap being sort of driven into the marketplace, where you have agents who are totally indispensable to the well-being of their clients. And you've got agents who are very commoditized, right? And it's easy. There's 2 million people with their real estate license in the United States. That's over 1% of the population of the United States has a real estate license. There's no other service industry like that. It's kind of ridiculous, right? So, yes, like, if you don't try, you're a commodity. So you can choose. There's 2 ways to deal with disruption, right? Just disruption theory. Dr. Christensen just died. He's from Harvard, and he talked about disruption in the late 90s. And there's 2 ways to deal with it. Both are innovations. One is an innovation to go play at the bottom of the market really, really strong. So, okay, how can I sell this cheaper than anybody else? And how can I, hone my margins down? And that can be totally legitimate. But understand, if you do that, you are commoditizing your service, meaning that you're easily replaceable. A commodity is something easily replaceable. On the upper side, and we know great professionals who you can't imagine walking into court without that attorney. Right? The opportunity cost of not having them represent you and your interest and their thought process, how they think about things, is indispensable. So if you're focused on the what only, what am I trading with you constantly, you're always going to play the commodity game. If you're focused on here's how I think and here's why I believe it's of tremendous value to those who want it and who see it, you're bad if you can't explain it, right? And you can't show that you're of value. I think there's a huge place in the market, an unfair share of the market to be had by indispensable agents here. But that mastery of craft, that understanding of your job as a wise counselor, especially when things get difficult, and showing up and acting in a way that allows your client to benefit in ways that they could have never expected. That's your job every single day. If you do that every single day, I also don't believe you can do that being part-time. You're going part-time, you're a commodity. And I hate to say it, but brokers have been built on a lot of part-time agents.
You think the agent count's going down?
I think it'll go down severely.
Me too.
I think we've got usually your bleed rate for your average person is about 3 years. So I think over the next 5 years, if you're not at a place that, and most of the commodity plays are going to be, I think, mostly kind of a W-2 or W-2-esque sort of person, right? Showing up for a paycheck or for leads, right? These people don't have a problem with leads. Indispensable people, these people have a real problem with leads, and they'll go anywhere that gives it to them. These people don't think about them as leads. They think about them as relationships that they invest themselves into. Commodity doesn't do that, right? This is just a volume play. These people do plenty of volume. They don't have to worry about that. And they set their prices as well. So that's a long way of saying you got to choose. I'm choosing up here, and this is what I want to do. I believe that this is the right thing for the consumer and for the industry. And I think also when you act this way as a professional, there's a lot of joy that goes into it. This is the only way I really want to show up to people, is
Right.
this way.
Right. Man, I could listen to you talk for the rest of the afternoon, and I'm such a lucky person to be able to speak with you every 2 weeks. Pat Kilner, ladies and gentlemen.